question 1, what substance would make you experience this? The answer is mushrooms. So this is Psilocybin by me, Samantha Harris. So psilocybin, what is it? This is a fresh or dried mushroom containing a hallucinogenic chemical. So as we saw in the video, a lot of shifting of what the person was looking at, like the path was going side to side, the trees were moving, and they were able to picture something that kind of looked like a fish and a duck mix with a bunch of other creatures in the background of it. And what it looks like is it can be fresh, as we can see right here in this left picture. And these are a little bit thicker, more moist, tend to be like freshly picked. And then the dried is right here. As you can see, it's compared to about the size of a key, so they're not very big. They look very crusty and crumbly. And again, they are not very big, but these have the same effect used either way. It just can be eaten either way. So question 2, what is psilocybin considered? A hallucinogen, B, a steroid, or C, an opioid? The answer is A, a hallucinogen. So the classification, psilocybin is a hallucinogen, as we just saw, which is illegal, and it is Schedule 1 drug, because all hallucinogens are Schedule 1. The scientific name is psilocybin, but some street names are magic mushrooms, or shrooms. There is also caps is also another one because of the cap on the mushroom. The way that it can be administered is orally, and it can be added to teas. So people will brew it into a tea to drink it, or they will mix it into foods. And this is sometimes called microdosing, where they'll put small amounts in at a little bit at a time over time to get a full dosage, and this way it would lessen the amount of the bitter taste that people taste. The origin and history of it, it is found in Mexico, Central America, and the United States, and it has been around since the dawn of time. Since it is a natural substance, it has been growing for a very long time. So question 3 is, what schedule of drug is a hallucinogen? A, Schedule 1, B, Schedule 2, C, Schedule 3, or D, Schedule 4? The answer is A, Schedule 1. Question 4, how is it administered? A, injected, B, orally, or C, smoked? The answer is B, orally. Accessibility. So since it is a mushroom, it is grown very easily. The people that tend to use it are about the younger populations, and the reason as to why they would use it is that it has long-lasting effects. So kind of similar to LSD, it would last a typically large amount of time, as you can see, about 12 hours, and it can begin really quickly. So people are all about trying to get the most effect in the short amount of time, or see the most progress. So the fact that it can start taking effect within 20 to 90 minutes is something that a lot of people like, because they want it to happen faster instead of having to wait for it. And when do they usually use it? Is typically in the day or night, when you feel like somebody is going to have a lot of free time, because the trip is not going to allow them to necessarily function very normally. It can last up to about 12 hours, but there have been some cases, depending on your dosage, where it can last even longer than that. So question 5 is, how long does a trip normally last, or typically last? Is A, 8 hours, B, 12 hours, C, 4 hours, or D, all of the above? The answer is all of the above, because depending on your dosage will depend on the hours. Typically, you would not be able to get through an entire shroom trip within 4 hours. It oftentimes can cause you not to sleep and not to eat during these times, so you can find yourself getting very hungry but not able to actually ingest any food, and it usually has to do a lot with textures. So in this, I wanted to talk about the harms in society. So as we can see here we have all these substances varying from alcohol, heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamines, cocaine, tobacco, amphetamines, cannabis. All of these substances have been measured, and right here is the overall harm score. And as you can see, the highest is about 72 with alcohol, and this is harm to its users in the blue, and the harm to others is in red. So for harm for others, you can see that it's slightly under 50. But if you look over here at mushrooms, it is the lowest amount, and you see almost no red inside of the harm to others. And for harm to users, it's about 6, which is a lot lower than we see for all of these other substances. This shows to me that shrooms can be a little bit safer on the sides of harm to people, which makes sense to why there are movements to try and legalize this drug. Question 6, what is the overall harm score that shrooms had according to the graph? And A, 10, B, 25, 6, C, 6, D, 3. And the answer is C, 6. So the cost, this was a little bit more difficult to find. The drug is very affordable, so cost to like the individual is that it's affordable. As you can see right here, I have a little bit lower. It says that the drug can be about $5 to $10 a gram. This is what I found from a little website that sells it. And they can be free if the individual is growing it on their own. They just need to be able to supply themselves with the proper soil and seeds. Some cost to society would be some labor issues, climate volatility, and transportation expenses. So in order to transport the drug, it's expensive. Being able to get it in the right climate, and labor issues with hiring people to be able to do that, or people staying in the field, because it can be dangerous harvesting mushrooms due to the lack of identification skills that somebody may have. And if you identify the wrong mushroom, it can cause a lot of other issues. So where are shrooms grown? Africa, Mexico, Brazil, or Canada? The answer is B, Mexico. So the effects on the mind can be hallucination, difficulty separating fantasy and reality, panic, and psychosis, which is a loss in reality and usually happens in large doses. What we saw in that very first video is those hallucinations and the separating of fantasy and reality. It was hard to be able to distinguish that it was actual, like you were just walking through the woods and not seeing all these random creatures. If you watch people that are tripping on shrooms, they typically will grab stuff and try to handle things in their hand to kind of understand what's going on. A lot of times people don't understand where lights are coming from, things like that. What it can do to your body is nausea, vomiting, muscle weakness, and lack of coordination. So since you are tripping and all that hallucination can happen, as we saw in that video, if the path is moving, you're going to kind of wander side to side, kind of like you would if you were drunk. The muscle weakness is typical. And the nausea and vomiting typically come because you are eating a mushroom, and it does contain some poisonous chemicals inside of it, and it can be harmful. Question 8, what are the effects of on the mind? A, hallucination and panic. B, lack of coordination and vomiting. C, nausea and psychosis. Or D, muscle weakness and difficulty separating fantasy and reality. The answer is A, hallucination and panic. So here's some more effects. These are the short-term and long-term effects though. So some short-term are increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and heart failure. Obviously, these three kind of go hand in hand. Abnormal rapid breathing. If you could listen in the video, you can kind of hear the person breathing a little bit heavier and a little bit more frequent because they are walking while they are doing this. And, it can cause lung failure, changed emotional feelings. So I've heard people say that when they are when they are on this drug, that they will go from being really, really upset to being really happy. There's confusion and disorientation, suspiciousness, so this can be linked to paranoia, mixed up speech, loss of muscle control, meaningless movements, and irrational actions. Some long-term effects would be decreased motivation, prolonged depression, increased panic, impaired memory and concentration, possible severe mental disturbances, psychosis, increased delusion, bad trips that can last hours, weeks, and months, or even flashbacks. So as we can see, like I said, those trips can last longer than the 12 hours, but there's not a necessary endpoint, and it's all depending on how much you're taking, how often you're taking it, and all of those factors. So question 9, what is a long-term effect of shrooms? A, confusion. B, lung failure. C, mental disturbances. Or D, mixed up speech. The answer is C, mental disturbances. So some consequences of an overdose. So in the case that you take too much of a dosage of mushrooms, you can have a longer trip or a more intense trip. This is really dangerous because if you get into what they call a bad trip, it can cause you to do a lot of harmful things to yourself. So you may be scared and paranoid, suspicious, a ton of things, and your mind is going almost 100 miles per hour, from what I've heard. Psychosis, which we saw as a loss of reality, so this is kind of like a long-term thing. Possible death and poisoning, as I said, from the wrongful identification. So if you were to think that you're picking up a magic mushroom, the chances are you could be picking up a different kind that is poisonous as well, but that does not produce the hallucinogenic chemical, and that can kill you. Question 10. Large doses of magic mushrooms can cause psychosis and death. True or false? The answer is true. So some extra facts is that, as I was said that there are movements to legalize mushrooms, and it is legal in the state of Colorado. There are some few research going to show how magic mushrooms can help in the cases of addiction. However, not necessarily would I agree with that. And then also, it has the least amount of seeking medical attention than other substances. So people that tend to be on this drug don't typically try to go to the hospital due to any of the side effects that they're feeling. And if they do, it's just a lower percent. What I saw, the percentage was about 0.2% of people on shrooms will seek medical attention. And these are my references.